In response to the devastation and dislocation of the people of Ukraine, hundreds of generous indie developers have once again banded together to create another itch.io charity bundle to hopefully match the success of 2020's racial justice and equality campaign. By the time you're watching this, the donation offer will have ended, but for the 500,000 of you that showed your support, thank you. Our donations went directly to recuperating the people of Ukraine through the International Medical Corps and the Voices of Children organization. If you missed this opportunity, then I encourage you to do your own research and consider supporting the relief efforts or raising awareness. Although it feels a little inappropriate to crack jokes and play silly indie games while these tragedies are happening on the other side of the world, I want to celebrate and highlight the kind-hearted devs who donated their games to this cause. Over 550 games and hundreds of tabletop campaigns, printables, comics, and soundtracks. Where does someone even start? If you're familiar at all with the last itchio bundle that I covered on this channel, then you might already be aware of a ton of heavy hitters like Celeste, Minute, A Short Hike, 2064 Read-Only Memories, Hidden Folks, or even lesser-known games I covered like Underhero, Fossil Hunters, and Mabel in the Wood. But there are even more top-notch contenders in this bundle exclusively, like Crosscode, Nog, Jotun, Baba Is You, Superhot, Wandersong, Figment, Sundered, and even the Angry Video Game Nerd 1 and 2 Deluxe. But a lot of those have had their time in the spotlight, so let's get digging. These are some of my hidden gems from the bundle for Ukraine. Let's kick things off with a 64-bit throwback. Here's Toree 3D and Toree 2. These are 2 of 3 games included in this bundle from developer Ciactro, who specializes in low-poly platformers with clear inspiration from games like Banjo-Kazooie. There also seems to be splashes of creepypasta energy in Ciactro's library, as most of the games involve subtle supernatural or horror elements like haunted glitches and unexpectedly grotesque character designs. In the first Toree game, this theme is barely explored, with only a handful of creepy moments across its colorful adventure, and the sequel just about drops the act altogether and is just plain jolly throughout. The creepy stuff never got me. Okay, it got me one time, but one of the better moments is this giant star that would glitch out and slowly pursue you. The unearthed haunted game meme has been pretty run into the ground these days, so I don't mind that it's not central to the game's enjoyment, because these 2 entries stand on their own pretty well. Each title consists of 9 linear platforming levels for our little chick to dash through, collect stars, and avoid deadly traffic. The levels are quick and fun without too many frustrations. The aforementioned truck hopping levels were a bit of a drag since the vehicles would often move back and forth out of reach of one another and led to a lot of waiting around, but the sequel ironed out a lot of the level design kinks, and the addition of these boost rings and slingshots made for really exhilarating speedrunning potential. The thresholds for anything above a C rank is really demanding, so expect to memorize your routes if you want to unlock every character. Unfortunately, McBat, who you earn after collecting all the stars and can infinitely jump, can't help you achieve better ranks. Thankfully, the sequel includes hidden CDs that only bats can access, which gives you more reasons to replay and soak in the cool level designs. The music reminded me a lot of Kirby 64 and Snowboard Kids, some of my favorites from the era, and ranges from synthwave candy pop to punk rock. The original Toree 3D even has remixed soundtracks available, but the tone of each level can vary dramatically between them. Toree's easygoing, jazz-fueled, not on the town, hard pivots into mainlining cyber heroin in the back alley behind the Robo Club. I appreciate the hard rock finale to this plinky clown music, whatever they're going for, and the sequel just gets sensual. The way they incorporate this new Toree theme song is great, and overall the sequel is way more consistent and catchy. And lastly, the sequel even includes 3 bonus missions that are mini sandboxes similar to Mario Odyssey, with an emphasis on exploration and grabbing collectibles. Man, I wish the whole game was more like this, but I can't deny that rocketing through stages wasn't a blast. That final boss was a prick though. Can't all be perfect. We'll keep with the spooky vibes and move on to the moody pixel platformer Inmost. Now, the art style by Russian and Ukrainian duo at Hidden Layer Games is truly remarkable, with excellent use of lighting and expressive character animations for such small sprites. The puzzle design is very reminiscent of Playdead's titles like Limbo and Inside, a lot of self-contained little puzzle rooms with block pushing and observing the environment, and the occasional trial and error of trying to get the enemies to react exactly the way you want them. There's even some tense chase sequences and a bit of hack-and-slash combat thrown in for variety. For a 2D puzzle platformer, there's not a lot of bad things to say. There's a good amount of hidden collectibles and unlocked tidbits of backstory and lore, and most of the interactables are easy to see and intuitive to use. I would really recommend for everyone who owns this game to try it out because it's a very solid and polished downer of a game. For everything I like about the game, it was just a bit too depressing to actually enjoy that much. If you're not comfortable with a story that's pretty overt about loneliness, bullying, domestic abuse, suicide, homicide, genocide, all the sides, you're in for a pretty rough ride. I got about 2 hours in, roughly halfway, and despite how well crafted the game was, it was just about the last thing I wanted to play at the time. I truthfully think it's one to put on your radar, but just be prepared. And although the devs recommend finishing it in one sitting, feel free to take plenty of breaks. This one's a heavy and meaningful game, straight from the people affected by the events in Ukraine. Here's a nice change of pace, though. Cloud Gardens is a total chill-out puzzle game. Insanely simple premise. Place a bunch of junk and then grow all sorts of plants and vines and trees all over it to a certain percentage to clear each stage. What started off as a kind of baffling non-game with no chance of failure pretty quickly turned into an addictive strategy game with some stages having a pretty tight margin for error. In the blink of an eye, I had sunk 3 hours into the game and had to pry myself away from trying to unlock the next area theme or plant type. Sure, it's sorta pretty in a dilapidated, overgrown kind of way, but what could possibly be that much fun about making little digital terrariums? The idea is that you start off with a couple of seeds, and each object you place within a certain distance of the plant causes it to grow. If you let it grow long enough without destroying parts of the plant, it'll grow flowers and seeds that you can use to plant more plants. Bigger objects make the plants grow faster, but are harder to place without crushing your beautiful foliage, so it becomes a delicate and deliberate process to plan ahead in case you randomly have to fit an enormous car into the scene somehow. You end up having a lot of interesting things to consider. What order to place objects, which objects can stack and provide places for plants to grow, making sure you cluster your plants so each object can benefit the most plants, using a variety of plant types to either cover large surfaces or grow tall in tight spaces. It reminds me a lot of the satisfaction of Katamari Damacy, actually, starting off with something tiny and snowballing into massive chain reactions. It helps that the visuals of the plants growing is so hypnotic, and the end results can be really beautiful. You can even make some wild Escher-esque structures, or get in depth with making the perfect scene, or just throw stuff willy-nilly and make it rain all over the place, and you'll probably be fine. I think this game rules. Check it out.
It's a jungle out there, and some guys just don't know when to call it quits. But that's all just another case for Detective Howard Lotor.
While obviously not the first to tackle a grounded detective noir with anthropomorphic animals, the story of Backbone so far is a good one. I finished the prologue act, which sees our raccoon protagonist track down an otter whose wife presumes is cheating on her. The trail leads us to a ritzy nightclub called The Bite, owned by the local mafia family of bears. We rub elbows with civilians for clues, try to bribe, lie, and threaten our way in, and sneak past security to uncover a series of gruesome crimes that run way deeper than one unfaithful otter. The writing is pretty slick with a lot of funny lines, but most of my snark was swiftly met with disdain from the folks I was trying to get info from, so I don't really know what the point of it is other than to tempt the player. Despite the excellent presentation of detailed pixel art and a smooth soundtrack, I don't see myself digging in again anytime soon. While certainly less obtuse and more forgiving than the point-and-click adventure games of old, I don't get a lot of satisfaction out of conversational puzzle games like this. It often seems like trial and error which responses will set off characters, and saying the correct code of phrases feels like a lottery. It at least felt like there may have been multiple ways to complete my objective, and I was really impressed with this locker puzzle that involved lining up the different clippings to reveal the code to the door. That kind of stuff is much more my cup of tea, and to be fair, I never had to reset a save or fail to move forward, which helped the story move along at a nice pace. The themes and topics so far haven't been revolutionary, but it's well executed and the majority of the characters were likable. If you're down for some Zootopia meets The Wolf Among Us, then Backbone will certainly deliver. In the ever-expanding genre of roguelites, Moonhunters advertises itself as an action personality test RPG? And I just had to know what the heck that means. I was prepared to break out my Myers-Briggs alignment charts and get my horoscope read, but a bit disappointingly, they just mean that there are narrative choices in the game that can affect your character's build for each run. They at least commit to this concept because just about every conversation will have an immediate effect on your stats or assign traits like compassionate or proud, which will unlock new conversation opportunities. The constant drip feed of these stat increases made me seek out every conversation I could, and by the end of my run, my character was immortalized in the stars for future generations to weave epic tales about. Long shall our people remember the mighty spell sword Janitor, as quick to forgive as he was literally quick. He won all sorts of marathons. He once helped a guy dig for treasure for like 30 seconds and crushed the evil sun cultist leader King Marduk for his heresy. That's a pretty silly system, but it at least made me consider my narrative choices with a little bit of extra thought. The combat is a pretty standard top-down affair. Each of the starting classes has their own set of abilities, from quick dashes to slowing vines. There are unlockable classes, costumes, recipes, starting locations, and somewhat randomized upgrades for sale, which can really expand the possibilities for different runs. If you're a huge fan of Hades or Children of Morta, Moon Hunters will keep you busy with its folktale charms. ZeroRanger is a shoot-'em-up. If you like that sort of thing. I'm not very good at them, and this one only has like 3 colors, so it's kind of hard to see, but it seems pretty polished. I put it on this list. Oh look, the game lets me surrender before the game even starts. How thoughtful. Hypnagogia is like a really excellent student project. I want to praise the developer Raptorsoft for making really endearing character models with a lot of fun detail and personality for this appealing low-poly exploration platformer. If this was developed by a friend or a classmate, I'd be so proud of them and gladly finish the whole thing looking top and bottom for secrets, but I don't know you, Sodaraptor, nor do I have any interest in playing your boring game. The whole experience guides you everywhere like baby's first 3D adventure game. For an exploration game, there sure ain't a lot of exploring to do. Each tiny level is just a bunch of corridors that never seem to have more than 2 paths to go at any time, and I barely found a single secret that wasn't mandatory to progress. But worse yet, you're constantly roadblocked until NPCs give you specific commands and allow you to progress. I was wandering all over looking for a dumb key until I talked to the snake a second time, then he gave me permission to move on and play the game. The worst was this eye door that posed a riddle to me, but you aren't even able to conceive the correct answer until you run back and talk to the Mushroom Mayor's assistant, who just straight up tells you the answer to the riddle. It's just go here, talk to this guy, go there, talk to that guy, go back to the first guy, with no opportunities to deviate or discover anything for yourself. And this game is also a first-person platformer, 2 words that do not play well together. The platforming challenges consists of hundreds of floating circles, so have fun lining up all those jumps with an incorporeal body. There were so many times I'd miss a jump or just didn't notice in time that there were gaps in the floor because my eyes kept glazing over at the dull and repetitive level design. I was at least hoping for some trippy imagery or fantastical set pieces, but for a game about the dream world, it's about the most generic settings anyone could imagine. The closest I could bear to get to was falling into a black hole conjured by a space eye or something. I was just clicking through the quirky writing by this point and ended up in some ethereal wasteland, but thank goodness my little Metal Gear radar showed up to let me know that I was dreaming. That was when I had to throw in the towel. Even walking sims have more to do and uncover. You're better off spending that 2 to 3 hours taking a nap. It'll at least be more entertaining. But if we want to talk about a 3D exploration game I can get behind, make room for Commune Corvidae. This one drops all the preamble, all the guidance, and just lets you loose in this big, interesting environment. You awaken in a cave and stumble upon a stone astrolabe. You may hear whispers of a shrine on the peak, or ebony slabs archiving the tyrannical dogma of the previous generations of crow overlords, and it's up to you to uncover the past for yourself. The world in Corvidae is vast and eerily vacant. The sparse other birds and rodents you encounter on your pilgrimage are suspicious of your heritage, and the scars of their uprising still seem fresh. Through the weariness and uncertainty of anarchy, though, the creatures of this world are still hopeful and optimistic about lending a wing to shaping their world. Rather than eradicate all evidence of Corvid's oppression or hold hostility towards the crows, the people leave the relics for historical preservation and to prevent future cycles of persecution. It's a fairly gripping and timely message that takes a lot of effort on the part of the player to unearth and piece together. It feels rewarding to encounter a character in a remote part of the world who will add a new perspective to the narrative. You'll find questions piling up in your mind, like why were the mines abandoned and what did they find? Who were the Cubane and what secrets were housed in their grand halls? What was the contagion being cleared, and was it the cause of the great elephant bones beneath the clouds? Why won't these birds let me into their secret treehouse club? I became more and more invested the deeper I dug into the lore, and it rarely felt like exposition just for the sake of world building. Taking an obvious cue from Breath of the Wild, you're free to climb and glide on anything and everything. There's a generous stamina bar and pretty complicated gliding mechanics that I never quite got the hold of. Diving and soaring back up seemed to build up a good amount of momentum, but some of the speeds I was getting felt more like a glitch than the intended method. It's worth experimenting with because simply flapping around will take ages to get anywhere. You can freely teleport to the central tower from the menu, as well as fast travel to any area slabs you've already visited, so backtracking is a non-issue. The whole experience won't appeal to everyone, but if you're interested in absolute freedom to fully immerse yourself and explore to your heart's content, then give this one a shot. The bafflingly titled Kingdom Two Crowns is a side-scrolling strategy RPG where you play the role of a monarch tasked with building up your own empire from scratch to defend yourself from encroaching evils. The game plays like an idle resource manager as your troops accumulate gold through hunting, trading, and clearing land for your growing domain. The idea is to keep expanding your ranks and keep everyone busy to snowball your wealth so you can afford better resources, better defend yourself, or be able to travel farther from base. It's deceptively deep, as there's hardly any tutorial and I struggled to make much progress after the first few in-game days. But much like Terraria or Minecraft, there's so much more to discover and utilize. With 3 different aesthetic kingdoms to choose from, again, why only 2 crowns, there was a lot of this game I wasn't able to delve into in my short time with it. I was able to find and repair a boat that let me sail to a different island, but I forgot to bring any money with me and didn't have enough resources to even get a fire started. The game can be a little brutal with its randomly generated islands and relentless timed events like enemy raids and deteriorating structures. Now, it's a very pretty game, especially the ever-present reflective water, but getting around is so slow. Even the starting island is ridiculously long and your dang horse has like 20 seconds of sprint before it's wheezing and dying for a quick graze. This makes exploring even a little bit away from base a dangerous commitment, and heaven forbid you don't want to spend an entire in-game day creeping along and decide to dash to the end of the map. You might get stranded with no stamina and no grass to eat, and these little buggers will rob you blind or worse. If I knew what I was supposed to be doing and the most efficient way to grind everything up, I might have had more fun, but this is a survival game, not an exploration game, so I'd prefer a little more guidance. But with a bit of patience, I could see this one rise to the occasion. So, I hear you're into gaming! But are you also a fan of
anime?
Yeah, and manga!
And wish you could finally speak the language so you could ditch the subtitles or the English dubs? Then you need to learn Japanese to survive! Conjugate these kanji or perish! It's not as intense as all that, but I wish I could have recorded my reaction to this image. This is one of the most absurd screenshots I've ever seen for any game on this site, and the bundle for Ukraine includes Buzz Dungeon. I could not resist downloading a series of RPG Maker games about learning Japanese words where your enemies are literal floating hiragana and kanji symbols. The next best clip I have is discovering what the healing potions in these games are. These are a popular drink in Japan. Oh, we're such weebs. We're drinking Ramune. The first Learn Japanese to Survive is about a roaming Japanese wizard named Naburu who goes around terrorizing villages with words they don't understand. Pretty much just the knights who say ni, but more malicious.
Please, no more!
You and your generic friends enlist the help of a Japanese tutor to learn enough rudimentary hiragana, basically the Japanese alphabet, to combat the monosyllabic menace. It plays exactly like a typical turn-based RPG Maker game, but you can only damage the enemies by attacking it with the correct pronunciation. Pretty much just a memory matching game with some light leveling mechanics on top. You need to decide the attacks of all your party members at once, so you better hope you pick the right answer or you'll have wasted 4 attacks in a row. The game will probably introduce combined hiragana words or more damaging spells, but I suspect the challenge is mostly just memorization. This could be a decent alternative to similar gamified language learning apps like Duolingo, with a bit of exploration and story to string you along, but what's here wasn't too special. The sequel, Kanji Combat, is way more robust and polished from what I've seen. Instead of being set in a pseudo-fantasy village that's also near Japan somehow, you start off in the real world and your created character wins a raffle to study abroad in Japan for 3 months. After meeting your quirky and culturally diverse classmates, you all get spirited away with your hot tutor to a fantastical realm. The story has fully voiced cutscenes that are actually pretty well performed, and the visuals have gotten a massive facelift. The story also leans into the silliness of its premise more, which I appreciate, with more humorous dialogue and crazy weapons like a giant calligraphy brush and tossing money for a shrine fox to attack for you. Gameplay-wise, you still have the same dry lesson sequences that ask you to jot down your own notes and practice drawing the character strokes in the correct order. Hiragana is the recommended starting point, and I can see why. So many different pronunciations and meanings for these kanji characters, it was seriously overwhelming, even for the first 10 or so words. The nice thing about the sequel is that the combat's much more forgiving and even more helpful for studying. Each party member attacks one at a time, so there's less punishment for guessing incorrectly. The characters even vocally shout the different pronunciations alongside their attacks to help reinforce your memorization, and I couldn't help repeating along. And instead of just matching the characters, sometimes the enemies would be their English counterpart, and I assume changed their pronunciations as well. There's a lot more to test, but I found it to be more enjoyable and challenging with the added variety. There's even a light town building mechanic by using orbs collected from enemies. Overall, Kanji Combat is the superior game, but possibly not the best starting point for serious Japanese language studies.
Toree, that's a bird for you and me.
And there you have it! 12 games that should get you started on your now endless backlog of indie games. Again, if you missed out on this incredible bundle, check out some of these games on your own and give back to the generous developers who donated their games for charity. I always enjoy diving into the smorgasbord of indies and never knowing what I'll find. I plan to make a follow-up video talking about all sorts of games I missed from the Racial Justice bundle, so subscribe to the channel if you like this format and want to see more rapid-fire recommendation videos. But seriously, thanks so much for watching, keep the people of Ukraine in your prayers, and keep it clean out there. I'll see you in the next one.